There you go. Some nice chuckles from our audience there already. Okay, please welcome to the stage our audition tonight, which we're really excited about. She appeared in all 4 Monty Python films, referred to as the female Python. You might remember her as playing the dual roles of Zoot and Dingo, twin leaders of the Maidens in the Castle of Anthrax, affectionately referred to by the Pythons as Carol Cleavage. Carol Cleveland joins us tonight, as does Teddy Gilliam, Teddy Jones and Michael Palin.
Hello.
Hi.
Terry's gone in a bit early.
Hello. Hello.
Are we supposed to be here?
Yeah, please sit down.
We just met Carol.
No, I know. That's what I thought. I'm in the wrong place.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's
Already.
confusing.
Already
That's
it's
what I
chaos.
thought. Because I knew that. I knew
Toby's
that.
musical chair.
So nice to
It
see
was
Carol. We were
confusing.
just wondering about Oxford
Well,
Street,
because
Regent
they
Street.
brought me
There was
on
Carol
first.
said she's coming here.
I know. I
great.
haven't seen them in about 50 years.
No,
And
How long is it since you've seen each other?
Oh, 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crikey.
We
No,
were at
it's not
school,
that
weren't
long.
we, last time?
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. And there, I mean, there's so much we want to get as many questions from our audience as well. We want to run some clips, some of to get your thoughts and insight into this
Should
world.
I apologise for some absent Pythons?
That's what I was about to say. Eric is
Not here.
Eric's making a
massive Hollywood.
a big Hollywood
stage show or
stage
something?
show about Dick. I think it's...
Okay. I look
Yes,
forward
it is.
to that.
Dick is in the subject. It's something,
Yeah.
everything about Dick. I think it's about Richard III or something.
Great. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
However, by the powers of technology, I believe that we have another Python on.
Yes. Yes, John, who can't be here tonight because he doesn't want to be. No, that's not it. He's in Australia collecting money for his next marriage. Well, I think that's true, isn't it? But he has sent a message
He has.
to you all, which is jolly nice,
Here we
really.
go.
So,
Here's John.
the master.
Hello there. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you today, but I'm in Australia in the middle of this massively successful stage tour of mine, 100% sellout and all that. But I'm delighted to be able to interrupt my frantic schedule to send a message of support today for, which is it? Oh, for apples. You know, I've always been a huge fan of apples since the 70s. In fact, I've been buying my greengroceries there ever since I first moved to London. And I can't tell you, it means a great deal to me to be asked today to open this little shop on Oxford Street, I believe.
It's already open.
Oh, it's already open.
It's our computers.
And it's for commuters. Oh, really? Good. Well, why do they commute to the store?
They sell computers.
Oh, computers! Oh, well, you know, I've been a massive fan of computers ever since the very beginning, fascinated from the very start. In fact, I remember young Stephen Fry asking me once where he should put his mouse. I was not able to tell him, of course, because it was illegal in those days, but that's how long I've been fascinated by computers. And before I say more about computers, perhaps I should tell you a little about my early life. I was born in Uphill, which is a suburb of Weston-super-Mare, in October 1939, just after the outbreak of the Second World War. And in fact, during the phony war period, as somebody once said, I'm a phony war baby. But we left Weston-super-Mare in 1940 when the Germans bombed Weston.
Anyway, sorry about that.
I should say as well at the end, the guys are going to stick around for as long as possible at this table over here, because you can have your apps on your phones and iPads personalised as well. So we'll try and get as much of that done at the end as we can. But let's get some questions. Terry, can I start with you? When you first started with Python, you wanted to innovate. Was that the aim?
Yeah, I think that we wanted to change. I don't know. I just thought that this was our chance to actually do something. We all knew we knew Graham and John, and we were coming from what was it? What that show
Mike,
called?
Does
Do Not Adjust
Your
Your Set.
Does that work on
Sorry, there's been a crack. Yeah.
There we go.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No?
Yeah. Oh, he does. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that's really good. Yes. So Terry lost the power of speech, and
Shame.
this would be a good idea for a series.
How was it decided what was going to go into this app? Was that an easy process? Was it a difficult? Were you involved in that process, or was it something that you?
Yeah, no. We all sort of read out the sketches we'd written, and then they put them on the out pile or the in pile, whichever.
I mean, the thing was, we wanted to write and perform. That was the main thing. So to give us as much control over the material as possible. The BBC found this a bit difficult to start with. They kept asking us what we were going to call the show for a start. We had no title for it. One just wanted to call it It's or something like that. And they wanted something sensible. What were the other ones we had? Good names.
Yeah, a horse, a spoon and a basin. Owl stretching time.
Owl stretching time, I like that, yeah.
But I remember us going to in front of these board panel of suits at the BBC, and they're saying, what's the audience you're aiming at? And we said, well, we didn't know. And then they said, well, is it going to have music in it? We said, well, we didn't know. And then they were saying, well, what's it going to be called? I said, well, we didn't know. And then there was a lot of head shaking, and then they all went together. And then they said, well, we can only give you 13 shows.
Yeah, those are the days.
Those are the days, yeah.
Do you think? Do you think if Python hadn't been around then, it'd come around now? It would have had the freedom and the creative freedom that you guys had back then.
No, not at all. Not for a moment, because now to develop anything at the BBC or any of the British television companies, it takes a good 2 years of writing, rewriting, meeting all the people that grew up taking media studies in this country who then took over. Because in the days of the BBC when we were there, it was basically guys who'd been around for a while and couldn't wait to get down to the bar at 5 o'clock. And so decisions were made quickly. And it also, the difference is you had 3 channels. So that it wasn't a million channels like now, where the audience gets so diffused. And because it clicked fairly quickly, suddenly, boom, there was a focus, and everybody started talking about Python. And then it grew. Now it's
It was only actually show 5 that it was.
It was only 4, wasn't it?
4, maybe show 4, yeah. That we suddenly realised that it was sort of taking off, because it was schoolboys writing in and saying how much they appreciated the shows.
Do you remember the moment when you knew
What?
it was funny and people knew it was funny?
When I knew it was funny, or when people knew it was
Well,
funny?
all right. If there's a big gap, tell us.
You never thought it was funny, Carol. No.
I know it's a long time
When did you realise
since
you
my
were
mother
working with
thought it was funny.
5 incredibly talented, or 6, is it?
Not immediately.
No, not immediately.
No, I do remember, to be honest, I came to the first day's rehearsal because, see, I got these scripts and they'd only written 5 episodes when we started, only 5 when we started rehearsing, and I was to be in 4 of them, and I got these scripts, and I hadn't even met any of the guys at all. So I knew who they were, but I hadn't met them, and I got these scripts, and bearing in mind that the scripts did not include the animation, so you had a script that had a sketch that had no ending and possibly no beginning and didn't make any sense at all. I mean, and so I'm reading this script and thinking, I don't get it. I mean, there's no ending. I'm totally confused. And then so I went to the first day's rehearsal, and they were all larking about. They were having a jolly good time. Lots of giggling was going on, and at the end of it, I was none the wiser. And I remember going back to my husband and saying, I don't think this show is going to last more than 5 episodes. I don't get it. How wrong was I?
I know, you shouldn't have done, really.
No.
It lasted longer than the marriage.
Yeah, you did. This is so true.
I want to run a clip, and I want to talk to you about this clip because it just gives you see a little snippet of an insight to how much fun you're having. It's the French lecture on sheep aircraft. So we're going to run this, and when we come back, I want to ask you about it.
It was early. That was a sort of glimpse there of what a French Basil Fawlty would have been like. A little hint of it.
But you see, that's what they were doing, the first rehearsal. That was the first episode, was it?
Yeah.
This is what I saw them doing when I came in. I mean, please. Makes sense of that.
It was a difficult script to learn, that one. So in the end, we just
Did you see
improvised.
him giggling? Did you see?
That was what I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about, because there's a moment that you almost, when you give him back the moustache, you almost lose it. And you
Well,
have to turn back to... But that's what's so brilliant about it, is that...
You have to, I think you have to perform it at the point where it is still funny to you. Otherwise, I think you just lose something. And I always quite like just getting to the stage where I had to control myself not to laugh, because if it was going well. There was a thing called Cheese Shop, which we used to do, and all I had to do was say no all the time. And John read out this list of cheeses. Have you got that? No, the cat's eaten it. It was the longest line I had to say. And I could never get through that without at some point beginning to crack up, because it was just something that was such a waste of time. It's such a pointless 4 or 5 minutes of television. I could see John going on there doggedly, and I never could do it without breaking up, and I'm quite, in a way, quite proud of that.
How do you feel seeing it now? I mean, do you see it that often? You know, because it's around the world. It's in psyche. It's such a huge thing still.
I haven't seen that for a long time.
How does it make you feel to see it, though? Is it?
Well, I thought it was very funny, actually.
Very funny.
It reminds us how old we are, because that sketch was provoked by the Anglo-French Concorde, which was about to be built.
And Brian
Trubshaw was
the
the test pilot,
test
the British
pilot,
test pilot. Brian Trubshaw, hence all that. So there was a lot of silly talk about where the baggage would go and how many passengers could get on and all that sort of thing. So that was our way of dealing with the controversial subject of supersonic flight.
And the animation, that was the sort of innovative thing about the show, was the format of it and the fact it was these skits. The show was never really introduced. It was never kind of closed, and then it was interspersed with this animation. In terms of the animation, Terry, was it completely left up to you in terms of what you did, how you did it? Or did you know the sketches that were going to be in the show?
I mean, it's in a sense down to Terry liking something I had done earlier, which was a fairly stream of consciousness animation, and so the idea of getting rid of punchlines was, I think, Python's great leap in comedy. So we didn't have to drag a sketch out for the punchline, which often didn't work. So we had the freedom of trying to let things flow. So for me, it was wonderful because I had a starting point and a finishing point, and between that, somehow I could romp. And I used to try to explain to them exactly what I was doing, and failed miserably. So it wasn't until the day of the show when I would arrive with these cans of film. And what still amazes me is that it actually worked. You know, this foreigner from a big place across the water coming to this pathetic little nation and working with people who had been educated in two of the finest universities on the planet, and it was able to keep the audience awake between their sketches.
That's what you think.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at one right now. Brian Island and Brucey.
Ah, yes.
We were just talking about it. I hadn't seen that, I think, since we did it, and I can't imagine who did it. Because it's like the flying sheep. It is utterly absurd. I mean, if you sit and try to describe why that's funny, you can't do it. But when I saw it the other day, I just started howling.
Very good. I showed it to my grandson,
Yeah.
who's 6, and he just looked at it in amazement and said, "Can you do that, Grandpa?" So, got my little short. But it's definitely for 6-year-olds, that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The 6-year-old in all of us.
No, but that's our future, Mike.
Yes.
6-year-olds,
I
they
know.
become 8-year-olds and 10
Yeah,
years
there are
old.
only
And they
6-year-olds
buy
here.
things.
Yeah.
They buy
Yes.
things.
Respect.
Yeah.
And we were silly then, and we've reached the age now where we're getting silly again, aren't we?
You are.
Yeah.
When do we ever get sensible? Come
Well-
on, Carol. Was there a point in your life where you suddenly
Not me.
became sensible?
I thought you guys had, because
No, not really. No,
Carol, how was
No,
it for
just-
you to come in and become involved in this world? Because they'd obviously been working on the writing and
Yes,
and
yes,
the
they've been
ideas and
working
stuff, so-
together, all
And
of
we
them,
were,
in
we
one
were
way or
playing
another.
all the women anyway.
And they were playing all the women. Well, yes, I mean,
What
it
was
wasn't
special about you,
what was special. I think because I didn't have hairy legs. I do now, but. Well, I mean, I was very fortunate because, as I was saying earlier, I was only meant to be in 4 episodes. That was all I was scheduled for. And I came, and I do remember coming along for what was supposed to be my final episode, and coming into rehearsals. And Michael rushed up to me and he said, "We've got a lovely part for you in episode 6 or 7." And it was to play Vanilla Whore. I don't know what to do. In the Scott of the Sahara sketch, and because and I said, "Well, I'm not in episode 6. This is it. It's finished." And he said, "What? What?" And then he went and got John, and John came over, and the other guys came over, and they all said, "What is this?" And I said, "Well, I'm not in anymore." And they were lovely, and they all put their big python foot down and said, "No, we want you," and I owe it to them. And it was lovely because I was only supposed to be flitting in and flitting out, but it was
Well,
down to
Carol
the
was-
guys that I stuck
You
around.
know, you're really good because you got the humour. I mean, you would do anything.
I
Any
would do
silly
anything.
thing,
Well,
but
nearly
you would do it absolutely deadpan and
No,
straight
you did do
if it was
anything.
required.
Maybe I did anything with you, Roger.
No,
but
it was exceptional.
Well, I was
look back
prepared to
now
be
and I
very
really
silly.
enjoy seeing things you've done because that's a real good
You
bit
liked
of
it.
acting.
I think my favourite sketch that I was in that you've always sort of is the one with the pantomime horse, isn't it?
Oh God, yes, yes.
You see,
Oh,
he loved that
pantomime
one for some
horse,
reason. He
that's
loved
right.
me making love to this pantomime horse. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know why.
Not my bit, you didn't.
It must be a
Just the
complete
front
trip
legs,
down
you
memory lane for you, although the fact that, this is a whole new generation probably of people who are going to experience Python now through, technology and through it kind of being put out there, in a different way, which, and it stands the test of time. Why do you think that?
I think because it's quite silly. It's not topical.
Yeah.
It's not trying to be related to a certain time and a certain period. It's not saying anything about, the zeitgeist or anything like that. It's just humans, grown-ups, behaving in a very silly way, which I think,
Which we
is
don't
just
do
the way
enough
we
of.
do.
Exactly.
We acknowledge that. Children see that.
And you can just shake the iPhone and it changes.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah.
That's a
Forgotten about
brilliant
that.
thing.
Yeah, which is great for people of our age.
But it's
Can
that
you all
thing
practice
of...
shaking?
Yes, can you all practice shaking, please?
Come on, just come on, that's it. Very
No,
good.
that's
He's
not
got
the way
it
to
very
shake.
well. Yeah.
No, there's
Some of them look
sexual
like you've done a
shaking.
lot of practice.
He was cheating.
And you can do it with the
That was
other
not
hand.
comic. That was sexual.
Yeah.
Shall we get some questions from this enormous audience that we have here? Because they've been here for a while. Find out where the microphone is first, and then I'll work out where we start. Any questions? Wow, yeah, there we go. There we go. It's the first one.
How's it going?
Hey.
I read that Elvis Presley was a huge fan back in the 70s. And did
So
he ever
was-
contact you guys? Or
So is the guy who killed John Lennon.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Say no more?
No, the man who killed Bobby Kennedy. He was,
And Bobby Kennedy, Siran, yeah.
but no, Elvis was a fan. I mean, apparently, he loved watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And I mean, to me, as Elvis changed my life, and I mean, his music came along, to think that this great, great, great man could have been chortling away at our comedy. Mind you, he was about 48 stone at the time and on drugs. But
It could have
was
killed
rather-
him.
This was true, apparently. But did he contact you? I don't think he...
Not after he died, no.
No. Yeah.
I would have loved it if he contacted
I know, wouldn't it
me.
be?
I
Yeah.
was a great
Yeah.
fan in my
Yeah.
teenage
No,
days.
that's quite-
But I understand he did. He had a television in every room, and when Monty Python was on, this is my understanding of it, that he would have it on, and he would insist that everybody in the house. I mean, that's it. Everybody sat and watched.
Well, I mean, Holy Grail was there was money put in the Holy Grail films. Led Zeppelin and
Yeah.
Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Musicians were always seemed to like our humour. I remember when the very first Python shows went out, we were just grasping at any straws of reaction. And someone said that Paul McCartney, apparently, when he was doing Wings or whatever at that time, he would always stop recording in the studio, however much it cost, for the time Python was on, and everyone would watch Python. And that, to us, well, just amazing. This was before we knew that George Harrison was a fan.
Who then invested in Life of Brian.
Yeah.
Was one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
began handmade films with George and Python. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and George saved Life of Brian. Yeah.
he's got a lot to be blamed for.
Yeah.
For making
Bless
us
you.
all laugh. Next question, please. Just, here we go. Kind of half hand.
Hi. When you're not mocking John, what do you do to enjoy yourselves? What do you find funny on TV these days or in films?
We mock Eric.
I was going to say, they're not Eric, yes.
I go to the pub.
Yes, I go to the pub with Terry.
And I watch them from across the street.
I tend to watch rather. I like sort of comedies like The Killing and things like that. I like good, really lovely Danish, sort of dark thrillers. That's what I find funny. Terry, what about you?
No. I'm too old for television.
Are there any
He
new...
can't switch
I
it
watch
on
radio.
anymore.
I just watch the
He
radio.
can't switch it on. He can't get a signal.
The shaking hand problem.
Are there any new comedians, you know, kind of from whatever parts of the world that you know, kind of that you really admire? Or newish? There's a lot who obviously quite blatantly reference you in terms of influence
Yeah.
and the other way around, but...
Oh, I don't know, some very good writers. And then there are some great performers around. I mean, I like 2012. I watched that. Written by John Morton. That's wonderful sort of sense of sending up the documentary and the thing about the Olympics. That's
Yeah.
really, really good. And, you know, there's the Eddie Izzards and people like that around that we've always been great admirers of. Can you think of anybody else?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Churchill, we like.
Churchill,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's jolly good. He went
Very,
and
very
died.
a great fan of Churchill.
Come on, Bill Bailey. Bill Bailey.
Bill Bailey.
Bill Bailey's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
No. And for television, literally, I mean, Family Guy is literally the only television I watch because I just am quite impressed with their ability to say all the things the rest of us are too timid to say.
Dylan Moran.
Who?
Dylan Moran.
Yes,
Dylan
brilliant.
Moran's
Very
brilliant.
funny. Yeah, very good.
You say
And
about
don't
that...
forget Vic and Bob. I know it's
Who?
a bit passé now. No.
No, it's good. But you say that thing...
I thought they were funny.
You say that thing about saying things that everyone else is scared to do, but that's what you did.
But I
You
think
know,
that's what was great about Python, keep pushing it to see how far we could go.
I don't think we were deliberately doing it.
I was.
We were just... yeah, that's it, you see. We always have different views of things, that's it. I mean, in a sense, it was just mucking about. We were very, very lucky to be able to do what we want. The BBC just let us have this show. It went on very, very late at night. And we weren't really... I mean, it wasn't satirical in a sense. We weren't trying to mock anything at the time. We were just larking about, doing whatever made us laugh. I think that's probably why Python still works, because it's so disparate. It's hard to pin down what it was, but it certainly wasn't an attack on anything at the time, particularly apart from, I don't know, the establishment, really.
I know, I mean, two Americans here actually put whatever balls there were into Python, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly
Well, I wasn't
Did
gonna
you?
say
Carol,
How many
yeah.
balls do you put in?
Carol did most of the work.
Yeah. Right.
One
Okay.
each. One each is enough.
Yeah.
Okay,
Terry,
now,
I'd like to say that Terry has now become a naturalised Briton.
Naturalized.
Have
Isn't that
you?
horrible?
Have you?
is that
Naturalized.
legal?
Yes, it
No,
is.
No, I
You can
renounced.
walk naked
no,
in the park.
I was
Naturised.
naturized. It's more like it. No, 6 years now I've been a Briton. I've been one of you. Because I renounced my country, Mike.
But you've still got
you?
an American accent.
I can't help that.
Yeah. How did you get that
I'm a
past the
slow learner.
authorities?
What?
How did you get that past the authorities when you have the final test and they say, how English are you?
It was very funny when I had to go to the U.S. Embassy to renounce it, how desperate they were to maintain a full American in Python. They didn't want to lose the American in Python. It was really true. Because they felt that was the only thing that dignified their nation.
They put you in here. Did they try and persuade you?
Yeah, no, it's really
Yeah.
funny. Because you go and do it, and I went to the desk, and I said to the lady, I want to give up my American citizenship. And she says, no, that's the wrong word. And I said, what do you mean it's the wrong word? I want to give up my citizenship. So, no, you have to say the word renounce. You have to renounce your citizenship. So you do that. And then you go downstairs, fill out a little form. They have you spend about an hour with them discussing, as if you were discussing with a psychiatrist or a social worker about the dangers of giving up your American citizenship. And then after they fill you with the knowledge of what might happen to you when you're not an American, you then send you away for a month to ponder these inevitable disasters. And then you go back and then they try again and they just plied me with drink and I mean everything. But if you
gave it up for tax reasons, didn't you?
Really?
Yes, you in the front. Hello.
Hi there. I just wanted to actually ask, when you were all writing the sketches for Monty Python, because the shows were only about 30 minutes long, there must have been some sketches that you couldn't actually fit in because they overrun, and maybe you couldn't even put them in the following show because you're planning ahead, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a lot of wastage.
So
I mean,
You want to know where they are?
I actually wondered if there's like a vault of ex-Monty Python sketches which haven't seen
Yes.
today yet.
I got a whole drawer full of them. Most of ours was rejected.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yes, there was material that's never seen the light of day.
Any plans
I
to
hear an
actually put it
app
out
coming
or-
on.
What?
I hear an app coming on.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if everybody didn't laugh when we read the things out first time, if it got a silence, then we'd put it on the out pile, and so it was about the out pile was about the same as the in pile, I guess. So,
I mean, there's some terrible stuff in Python. Anyway, they actually got in. So imagine what got left out.
Can you each remember a
Sorry.
sketch that? Sorry, can you each remember a sketch that made you laugh the most? One of I guess quite a few, but one that stands out as being.
I mean, the first time, I suppose they read, what's it called, Dead Parrot. Which,
do you want to?
John and Graham. I mean, that was just
John
what
read
can you
that
say?
out. Yeah,
It was written by John and Graham, who wrote absolutely brilliant stuff. They tend to write more sketches rather than the little bits and pieces. But that was pretty funny.
Do you want to see it?
Me?
Not
wanna see
that
it?
funny.
Okay, let's have a look at Dead Parrot.
It's a bit long, isn't it?
Okay, one last question from the lady, the lady in the pink at the back there. Who? Sorry, it's the first lady who had her hand up, so we're going to give her the last question. Awesome.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm so excited
Hi
to
there.
meet you guys in person. Hello. I understand actually from Michael's diaries, I believe, that I know it's sad, that the original series was nearly wiped by the BBC, the tapes, and it was only I think last minute that they weren't. Is that right? I was actually wondering if there were other sort of similar comedy series around the time. Firstly, I'm interested in which were your favourites anyway, but secondly, are there sort of comedies from the sort of 60s that you think might have survived to the extent that Python has if they hadn't been wiped?
Yeah,
Good,
I mean,
very good question.
yeah.
Terry knows about this especially.
Yeah, well, what was the Pete and Dud thing?
Not only, but also.
Not only, but also.
Wonderful
That was
series
white.
with
Yeah.
Peter Cook and Dudley Moore.
And Twice a Fortnight was white.
And Spike Milligan's Q5, which is quite influential on us. It was on just before us.
Yeah,
That was,
yeah.
I don't think that exists anymore.
No,
we were about the first, weren't we, to be kept automatically by the BBC. It was so lucky.
Well, we were really lucky because we were in colour, and
Yeah.
BBC One only went into colour that week, and it was a miracle actually. I think the shows would have looked dated if they'd been in black and white now.
But that's how most people saw them, I suppose, at the time. Most
Yeah, I
people didn't
guess
have
so.
colour tellies. So the first series of Python for most people is like George V's funeral or something. It's in black and white. I'm not as funny, but...
Silly's good.
But John, as you're
Should
saying...
we see? Should we see if
John
he's
awake?
got anything to say
Hello?
before we go?
What time is it in Australia now? Oh, there we are. Yeah.
So that's a brief outline of my earlier life. And so now it gives me great pleasure to get the evening started by introducing some of the lesser-known Pythons, starting, of course, with Mr. Michael Palin, who does those excellent travel programs. Then Terry Evans, or Jenkins, or Jones, or something Welsh, anyway. And, oh, I forgot to say, Yoko Idol is unable to be with us today, probably tied up with those numerous charitable activities of his. And finally, of course, Mr. Terry Gilliam, who helped the person who made all the animation for the marvellous Monty Python series. But before I do introduce them, I'd just like to take a moment.
I'll take that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take
to
that.
explain how my name became synonymous with Britain.
Okay.
What a start.
Please join with me in thanking these gentlemen and the gorgeous Carlsware for their time and insight into this brilliant world. And they're going to take a bit of time over here to personalise your apps and your iPads and iPhones if you have the time. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And thank you guys for coming down. Thank you.
All I need is 2 shots and I'm
I'm fine. I'm waiting for them to just do their part, then I can do my part. Okay. That bit.
Insight into this
Should
world.
I apologise for some absent Pythons?
That's what I was about to say. Eric is
Not here.
Eric's making a
massive Hollywood
a big Hollywood
stage show or something?
show about Dick. I think it's...
Okay. I look
Yes, it
forward
is.
to that.
Dick is in the subject. It's something,
Yeah.
everything about Dick. I think it's about Richard III or something.
Great. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
However, by the powers of technology, I believe that we have another Python on.
Yes. Yes, John, who can't be here tonight because he doesn't want to be. No, that's not it. Yeah.
Oh, for apples. You know, I've always been a huge fan of apples since the 70s. In fact, I've been buying my greengroceries there ever since I first moved to London. And I can't tell you, it means a great deal to me to be asked today to open this little shop on Oxford Street, I believe.
It's already
and
already open. It's already open.
Oh, it's already open.
It's our computers.
And it's for commuters. Oh, really? Good. Well, why do they commute to the store?
They sell computers.
Oh, computers! Oh, well, you know, I've been a massive fan of computers ever since the very beginning. Fascinated from the very start. In fact, I remember
He's in Australia collecting money for his next marriage. Well, I think that's true, isn't it? He has sent a message to you all, which is jolly nice.
Here we
really.
go.
So,
Here's John.
the master.
Hello there. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you today, but I'm in Australia in the middle of this massively successful stage tour of mine, 100% sellout and all that. But I'm delighted to be able to interrupt my frantic schedule to send a message of support today for which is it?
Are we supposed to be here?
Yeah, please sit down.
We just met Carol.
I know. That's what I thought. I'm in the wrong place.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's
Already.
confusing.
golly.
Already
That's
it's
what I
chaos.
thought.
we
This-
got
I knew that. I knew
Told me
that.
with musical chairs.
So nice to see
was
Carol. We were
confusing.
just wondering about Oxford
Well,
Street,
because
Regent
they
Street.
brought me
There was
on
Carol
first.
said she's coming here.
I know. I
great.
haven't seen them in about 50 years.
No,
And
How long is it since you've seen each other?
Oh, 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Crikey.
we were
No,
at
it's
school,
not that
weren't
long.
we, last time?
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. And there's so much we want to get as many questions from our audience as well. We want to run some clips, to get your thoughts and there you go, some nice chuckles from our audience there already. Okay, please welcome to the stage our audition tonight, which we're really excited about. She appeared in all 4 Monty Python films, referred to as the female Python. You might remember her as playing the dual roles of Zoot and Dingo, twin leaders of the Maidens in the Castle of Anthrax, affectionately referred to by the Pythons as Carol Cleavage. Carol Cleveland joins us tonight, as does Teddy Gilliam, Teddy Jones and Michael Palin.
Hello.
Hi.
Terry's got in a bit early.
Hello. Hello.